strategy in Asia given all the event risks heading into 2013?
I think for 2013 we are optimistic about growth recovering in the region, both economic growth and profit growth. And given where valuations are at the low end of their historical range, we think 2013 could be a good year for equities in Asia. Near term, over the next 1 or 2 months, there is clearly some risk around macro events, particularly the US situation and the fiscal cliff, which may add some volatility. But given the factors I mentioned earlier, particularly with China looking like it's recovering, we think any downside will be quite limited.
What is the general global risk environment looking like for the next few weeks?
Short term, very difficult to predict. Clearly we are heading into a bit more uncertainty around the US. And it's always very hard to predict the short term. But as I said earlier, I think 2013 is looking more optimistic, which is really what we are focused on.
Do you expect a fiscal cliff resolution by January? If so, what happens to equities in the meantime?
We do expect a resolution, although there is clearly risk associated with that assumption. We are dealing with policy and politics, and they tend to be very uncertain and hard to predict. So there could be some volatility around the end of the year, particularly if there is a delay in the resolution of the fiscal situation in the US.
Recent data coming from China is encouraging. Do you think that China will have better growth rate in 2013? If so, will that be favorable to the equity markets?
We are more optimistic about China's growth and therefore equity, given where valuations are at the moment. It is early days in the recovery, and we want to see some sustainability of that recovery, which I think is really what the market is telling us at this point in time. I guess the green shoots need to start to blossom into a more sustainable trajectory. So I think the market will watch over the next 2 to 3 months the data that comes out of there, and if we do start to get some momentum behind the economy, I think that's when equities will really start to perform well, and therefore we are optimistic about 2013 for Chinese equities.
How has recent event risk translated into how capital flows approaching the end of the year? Will concerns on the fiscal cliff, Eurozone and China dominate, or do you expect a December rally?
Well, if you look at Asia as a whole, flows in the last week or two have actually been the strongest they've been, inflows that is, within the last couple of years. So we are seeing investor demand coming back to the region. It seems to be somewhat regardless of the rising uncertainty as we approach year end. So again, I think part of this is to do with the fact that people are very defensively positioned, not just in Asia but globally, with regards to their investments. And as this uncertainty starts to lift around the world, people will want equities back in their portfolio. So again, we are optimistic about 2013 equity returns.